actually, it's the delayed, it's January 8th meeting of the Annapolis Education Commission, but it's actually the delayed December meeting because the December meeting fell on December 25th. Not generally a good time for Zoom meetings or any type of meeting, other than holiday meetings, especially this year with all the holidays falling right on December 25th and December 26th, or not all of them, but some of them. Anyway, we're going to wait a couple seconds. We'll wait just a few more minutes to see if anyone shows up. Anyone else shows up, I'm going to pull up the agenda so that we can have it up there for people to review while we're coming on board. I want to say Happy New Year, and I want to say happy birthday to Odessa.
Yes.
Just
Happy New Year. Do you want me to bring it up? I've got everything I put everything in the PowerPoint.
I'll bring up the agenda and then you can do the rest of it.
Okay.
Got it. Okay. So we've got that up there, and we'll wait just another minute as I see. I know that we only have Dr. Tobin for a short bit today, so we really want to make sure that we get moving and we don't lose her being here. So,
yeah, I just sent my friend that comes on, Regina Brown. I just sent her the link. She'll probably come on not as a panelist, as the other thing.
As an attendee.
So I'm just letting the person that's doing the opening, the invitation up. What's his name? Josh or somebody?
Yes, Josh.
The person yeah, right. I'm just letting him know that someone else will be coming in by the name of Regina Brown.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Odessa.
And Grace said that she had an emergency, so she may not be back in time. Grace Matthews.
All right. Thank you, Odessa. Appreciate that. Okay. With that, we have 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Math. I can't math today. 1, 2, 3. I've been home with too many children for too long.
They multiply on snow days.
They did, in fact, multiply on snow days. So we have 9 of us of the commissioners online. So I think we will call the meeting to order. And we will, so we'll call the meeting to order. Thank you all again for being here. Happy New Year. Happy birthday to Odessa. And
thank you.
and if at any point you can't hear me, I'm having this weird like spatial sound thing with my Zoom meetings. All of a sudden it wants to be smarter than my audio on my computer. So just yell at me or something, or raise your hand or something. The agenda is up so we can look at that. We will quickly do a roll call. Well, let's do agenda.
Jess, we need to have adopting the agenda on the agenda. So just if you want to squeeze that in.
Yep, we will add adopting the agenda to the agenda. That was under the secretary updates. I think that's what was included in that secretary updates. But thank you very much. So, sorry, I'm trying to move the screen and do all the things at the same thing. So, let's see. And I'm going to go in order of the roster that's online, which is not in Ward, it's in alphabetical order. So, Laura Booth from Ward 7.
Sorry, I didn't have time to find my unmute button.
It's okay. It's very confusing.
Laura Booth, Ward 7. I am the parent of a 2021 graduate from Annapolis High and a current Annapolis High freshman.
Perfect. Enid Collison-Lee, Ward 3.
I am present.
Okay. Do you want to give a little brief?
No, I think everybody here pretty much knows us.
Okay. Odessa Ellis.
Odessa Ellis, parent of 3 adult, not children, 3 adults who graduated from Annapolis High School. And I work a lot in the community, going to pantries and giving inspiration to people who need hope. There's a lot of people that needs a lot of hope out there. So I enjoy doing that. And my
Thank-
position is at large. Hmm.
Well, and we appreciate everything that you do, Odessa. It means a lot. That is for sure.
Yeah, I work with Peaches too, right? Donna.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with her.
Excellent. I'm not actually sure what order this is in, just FYI. So the next one is me, and I'm Ward 8, and I'm the mom of 4 kids in the Annapolis cluster, and that 2 at Annapolis High School, 1 at Annapolis Middle, and 1 at Eastport Elementary, and I'm active in the PTAs and PTSAs at all those schools. So that's me.
And
Next, Jamie.
And your name for people who can't read the screen?
My name is Jessica Packler. Yeah,
Great,
I had
thank
said
you.
that when I first started the meeting. So thanks.
I didn't-
Jamie Weaver, Ward 2.
Hi, I'm Jamie Weaver, Ward 2. I have 4 kids, 2 at Germantown Elementary, and 1 is now at Bates Middle.
Awesome.
I am a former teacher for Anne Arundel County Public Schools for the Infants and Toddlers program.
Awesome. All right, Pam Bukowski.
I'm an at-large member. I have 6 children who attended schools in the Annapolis cluster and a grandson at Hillsmere Elementary. And I'm a retired SLP from the county.
Janet Norman.
Janet Norman, at-large commissioner, have 2018 and 2021 grads from Annapolis High, and worked in PTA leadership there, and still trying to help kids get on track with college or career after high school plans. Thanks.
Perfect. Corey Mackel from Ward 6 is sick today, so she will not be joining us. But she has agreed to step up and be our secretary and do the training for the meeting notes and everything, which is fantastic. We're very appreciative. Next, we have Fish Stark.
Fish Stark. My first time meeting some of you. Good to see those I know. I've worked in education for a long time as an educator, then as a nonprofit program director working in college access and youth leadership development, then in the tech startup world building mental health tech apps for kids. Now run a national civil liberties nonprofit based in DC that does a lot of work on keeping religion out of public schools. No kids yet, but wanted to, didn't want to wait to start popping them out before work to improve the schools they're going to go to. Live downtown, educational background. I studied education in undergrad at Yale University and then got my master's in education from Harvard.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Ward 1, I think you said that, but just in case. Alderman Finlayson. I don't see her here. She had said she may not be able to make it, so we will be sharing the notes of the meeting with her. India.
India Oaks, Ward 5, parent of a 9th grader.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And alum of all the schools. And Grace Matthews has an emergency, isn't able to make it. So that is from the commissioners. And then from other people that we have on board, Dr. Tobin.
Good evening, I'm Joanna Tobin. I represent District 6 on the Board of Education, and I am the proud parent of a 2020 graduate of Annapolis High.
Perfect. And Carrie Berger. Carrie, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself since you're new.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Carrie Berger. I'm an assistant city attorney within the Office of Law. I've taken over the reins of advising you guys from Ashley Leonard. So I don't have any kids, but I'm happy to help if you guys have any questions along the way. And my email is in the email that was just sent out. So just shoot me an email at any time if you have any questions or ping me in any way, and I'm happy to help.
Perfect. And then Sarah.
here basically just representing the Bates PTA. I'm the successor president to the PTA to Laura Booth.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right. So before you, we have our agenda. And let's see, we will amend the agenda. Let's see. To include under the secretary update minutes, we will include, if I can get my computer to work in any form or fashion. There we go. Or not. Sorry, I've had a lot of kids home for many days. I can't even type anymore, apparently. So update it to include approval of agenda. Any other updates to the agenda? All in favor of the agenda as posted?
I make a motion.
Okay, sorry.
I make a motion to approve the agenda, the revised agenda as proposed.
I second. That's Lee.
Okay. Anyone opposed, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we will consider in favor. Great. Just one of the things on the agenda under new business, Janet wanted to speak about commissioner expectations. So she's going to give you a little preview so you can think about it during the rest of the meeting.
Yes. Thanks, Jess. Yeah, I wanted people to have a little bit of time to think about, what are your strengths? What particular things do you feel like you're called to use your talents to help out the commission? And if we can go around to each commissioner present and find out what you'd like to contribute to this chosen role, I think that would help us move things along. I know, for example, Odessa's been wonderful in the past going up to testify to the Board of Ed about the needs of Annapolis High or the needs of African-American young men and budget needs, things like that. So if you have a skill set that we need you, I'm gonna press you later on and go around and ask you what you'd like to do in this role as commissioner. So if you can think about that for a few minutes, and then we'll address it toward the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, great. For the secretary update, as I mentioned, Corey has stepped up to be the secretary and is going to be undergoing training with the city to do the minutes, and we'll be working on taking care of that. So that is much appreciated. And now we will move on to Dr. Tobin for an update from her.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for, as always, inviting me. I'm sorry I have a shorter time for you tonight. Unfortunately, we're playing a lot of catch up after days of the staff out of office. So we had a board meeting today. A couple of things. The calendar was approved for next year, so that will be going out. And also we approved a couple of courses, which I think are very valuable. One is a completer program. In other words, it's something along the lines of things that have been very popular in our centers for applied technology, but we just don't have the space in CAT. So we're approving a completer that will eventually come in 26, I think, into the high schools. And this is a program training in physical rehabilitation. And where the staff is currently working to set up a certification through working with the community college. And one of the really good things about it is it sets a student up to be able to get hired as an aide as they pursue if they choose to pursue the further program, say in the community college, they can be employed while doing that coursework. And this is after consultation with Baltimore Washington Medical Center, various other groups. There's already interest in hiring students who come out of this program. So that was one thing. I think it's some of the CTE work that I'm particularly pleased that we're doing. It has a lot to do with Blueprint funding. But this could, the need has been identified in the state right now that we need 7,000 physical therapists. And so it's an area of great promise.
Dr. Tobin, before you move from
Yeah.
that, could you just speak to like how many high schools might have this, or does it physically take place at the community college and you have to
Can
get
we hold
there?
questions till the end? Because I want her to get through her whole update,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, I'll come back to that. The second set of courses that we approved are courses for students, and forgive me, the exact name is escaping me because the board meeting today was 3 meetings ago and my brain is a bit of a sieve. It is a high school level set of courses for multi-language learners who have been multi-language learners for over 6 years. And it is a set of support courses with regard to literacy and writing in English. And I'm personally very pleased to see this for a number of reasons. Our report card data tells us that our multi-language learners are an area where we really need to do a lot better. It has also been the case, and I knew about this for years prior to my time on the board through my work evaluating public charter networks, that what had been the sort of standard approach to saying, well, a student's been in an ESOL system long enough, now they're considered sort of fully conversant, fully able to move forward with their literacy in English, is based on a lot of research, not long enough for most students. And so this is a very good another path. There are multiple paths for multi-language learners in high school. This is an additional one, but one that, based on research and based on the need that we've identified, we think will add tremendously to supporting our multi-language learners. So those are some things that happened in the board meeting today. In addition, we got an overview of projected revenues for the county from the budget officer, Chris Trumbauer. And I think most of it is what we would expect. Things are looking stable with regard to the county. We're in good fiscal shape in terms of our rainy day fund, our revenues, all of those things. What is vastly uncertain is what will happen with regard to the state budget. And frankly, what will happen at the federal level. We just don't know. So, so the good news is that the county is in basically good shape in terms of where we stand with regard to our revenues, our reserves, the trends that we're seeing. We hope that, as, for example, interest rates continue to go down, the recordation taxes and transfer taxes will go up because more people will be buying houses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the macro factors remain uncertain. And so, and as I'm sure you've heard, the governor and many others keep telling us how difficult the state budget will be, and that there will be some changes or pauses to the blueprint. And so, that's going to be a focus for us. As I'm sure you're aware from when our report card materials came out from the State Department of Education, we had some quite good news in the Annapolis cluster. Germantown Elementary is now a 4-star school. Tyler Heights Elementary is now a 4-star school. Hillsmere Elementary is a 5-star school, for example. So if you live in West Annapolis or you live in an apartment near Tyler Heights, you can send your child to a school with exactly the same ranking. And that's all attributed by Dr. Bedell and others I've spoken with to what we've been able to do at community schools. And many of our schools, even if they didn't move up a full point, are showing increases within those tiers. So, you know, that is Dr. Bedell's goal, that everybody, you know, aim to move forward every year. And if things don't move forward, then we have a lot of support for schools to work on exactly what it is they need to focus on. So that news was generally good news. And I think we are getting the message out, and I think the message is getting out to our state legislators that whatever happens with the blueprint, please, please, please do not touch the community school money. That is doing the things we've been chasing for decades. We're finally seeing some gaps close. We're finally seeing the sorts of movement for our students that those who have been in this game a long time have been hoping for. Finally, obviously, I'm sure you're aware, because of the inclement weather, we canceled or we postponed our budget town hall that would have been at Severn Run High School last night is now next week on Tuesday. We will have a budget town hall on tomorrow night at the boardroom. And the county executive's budget town hall for District 6, the Annapolis area, is on February 4th in the Annapolis High cafeteria, auditorium. So those are all places. Obviously, we want people to come out and give testimony, but please, if that's not possible, send emails, make your voices heard. I think there are a number of things. Obviously, a huge portion of our budget these days is taken up with the blueprint requirements. As always, compensation is the biggest part of our budget, and Dr. Bedell has proposed a 3% COLA and a step for our employees. And you know, I think we'd always like to do more. We're going to have to fight. We're being told we're going to have to fight for every dollar this year. One of the biggest asks on our budget this year from Dr. Bedell is more special ed positions. We have not had any new special ed positions in the past 3 years, and I believe our population is up by about 10%. And continues to rise. And I have always said, and I will always say, that when we lift up the most vulnerable of our students, we lift everyone up. The other thing, just for a few other pieces that are in the budget, middle school sports will begin in the spring. There is obviously some money attached to that. We've gotten some very positive feedback on that. I believe that it is particularly important in this cluster to offer those opportunities to middle school students, because the inequities for students who don't get to participate in club teams or traveling teams and then get to high school and compete in some cases with students who have, puts them at a disadvantage. We just also know there's a lot about having sports that's healthy, that students look forward to. And also, Dr. Bedell has pointed this out a number of times, in schools where sometimes you have students who come from neighborhoods where there have been historic disputes, it actually matters that everybody gets out there and cheers for the same team. that is a really important social component of this. So I'm very much in favor of it. I think it's important. I think it's healthy. And I think it offers what we're always looking for, which are more opportunities for our students, more reasons to enjoy being in school, meet new kids, be a part of a team. And so that's just a few of the things. The budget is a big budget. I know we had hoped to have some staff on tonight. Unfortunately, again, the staff is playing a lot of catch up right now, and they weren't able to come on tonight, though I believe they're happy to do so. And they're again, any and all emails to me, to the staff, we can follow through with those. With regard to your earlier question, Janet, I can't give you a direct answer right now of exactly which schools that program will be in, because we just approved, the step of, okay, they can go ahead and begin to put together over the summer this set of courses and the completer. So I can get back to you about that. The other thing is, I know there was a request about trying to figure out how many of our students walk, etc. I had a quick chat with staff about this. What we can get is the number of students in a school who fall under the transportation requirement, right? We can't tell you of those who don't, who walks, who's driven, that kind of thing, but we can give a sort of that basic number of who falls outside the walking radius for a given school, and therefore and it varies tremendously. I mean, I think Tyler Heights may have a total of 2 or 3 buses, whereas Germantown probably has 10. So, it's going to vary tremendously just based on the neighborhood, based on the density of housing in that neighborhood, all of those things.
Right. Well, that's one of the reasons that we want to get that information, so then we can look at it, right? Because the needs of each school, when it comes to everything from, inclement weather to everything else, school safety, crossing guards, etc., is going to be different. So that's what really helps to be able to understand if we get that information. So
Yep. And I'm trying to think if there's anything in particular. I think those are sort of the highlights right now. The other thing that Dr. Bedell has put a fairly substantial request in for it in the budget is, I want to make sure I get the numbers exactly right. More English language development teachers, and moving some of our bilingual facilitators from 10 to 12-month employees. We just find that the need is just very real, given our growing population, and ensuring that we are serving their needs as best we can. So yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we've requested and discussed many times is the increase in mental health professionals, particularly at Annapolis High School, where you go from having, basically 5 social workers to having 1 social worker for the population, and, just the number of counselors and things. Has that been addressed at all in the budget, or are we still trying? Can you?
So I'm reminding myself of all the details here. So we have a request. I have to go back and double check. I believe we have a request for some new positions, new counselors and social workers, but I will go back and double check that for you. Again, you've heard me say this a million times. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, for reasons having to do with good governance, no board member can direct where those positions go. For example, up until recently, up until maybe a year or 2 ago, Mead High had no social workers. And so, I know Dr. Bedell is trying to make sure that all of these needs, obviously I have advocated in every way I know how for an additional social worker for Annapolis High, and I will continue to do so. But again, I would urge everyone to make sure if they have an opportunity, obviously to advocate with us at the board, advocate at the county executives town hall for this, and advocate with the county council, which will come later in the spring. So,
Okay. I mean, I understand you can't direct, but I certainly would hope that you can advocate, because otherwise,
Oh,
what's
yeah.
the point of having elected people for our region, right? Might as well.
oh
just
yeah,
have, like,
oh
a
no,
random
they
board of
doctor.
people.
I walk into their office and they're like, "We know."
Right. Can you speak to, there is in the budget a line item for Annapolis High School, a main distribution center, motor control center? Do you?
I don't know that. I'm going to ask about the specifics of that. I found out about it when we first looked at the budget, and I haven't circled back on that. So I will get back to you on that, what that is. Make a
Okay.
note of that.
And I know you need to get going. Enid, if you have a quick question.
I do. I have two quick questions. And one is, you just said that, of course, you all cannot determine where the social workers go. So what or who does determine where they go? And that's the first question. The second question is, where can I find the rankings of the schools for the new ranking that you just said, where you said that Hills Mirror is now a 5-star, and et cetera?
So the information, I'll take your second question first. The information regarding the report cards is actually on the Maryland State Department of Education website.
Okay.
And if you go in there, you'll see there's a page which has to do with Maryland State Department of Education report card. You can pick your county, you can pick your school, and you can find everything there with all the results. With regard to how staffing is allocated, it's need-based. And one of the things that Dr. Bedell did when he came in, which I had advocated for a long time, and I knew he had done in Kansas City, was to tier our buildings with regard to need. And so you have objective structures that tell you where the highest need is. And this is also built into Blueprint, right? You may have heard Blueprint has one of the central tenets, which is the money follows the child, right? The child's needs direct how much money follows that child to school. So
I was just surprised to hear that Meade didn't have any. That basically was the reasoning for. Well, I know we've been asking for Annapolis High, and the need is definitely there. And when you said Meade didn't have any, I was really shocked.
Yeah, Meade has a problem in that they get crossed over between the federal support that they get because of where they're located and the county support that they get and the state support that they get. And so they've struggled. It is a school that has really struggled at times to get their needs met.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janet?
Yeah, quick question, Joanna. If I wanted to put in your head the idea of needed changes to the contractual mental health therapists. So, we don't have enough social workers. We don't have enough people to do the mental health assessments for our students in need. So AACPS does contracting out to other licensed therapists. Neighbor of mine does this in Fairfax County, professor, and teaches this at a college in DC. And she said the compensation levels in AACPS are so ridiculously low that as a PhD therapist, she's getting only allocated to see a student for a total of like 8 hours. And that's doing all the background work and being paid at about $35 an hour. So if you know of any lawyer who would take a job for $35 an hour or other things, the rate of pay is so much lower than Fairfax County. Fairfax County pays $550 per 7-hour day, and I don't think they have a capped limit. AACPS pays $400 flat rate, maximum number of hours. So this payment is why we don't have therapists working for our students. And I'm not, and the case reference that I don't know anything about, but it was not for the Annapolis cluster. This is,
Oh yeah, no, this
urban schools also, like, their students are not getting the attention they need or the diagnoses they need early on to get them the proper supports to learn. So that really has to be fixed.
well, I'll give you another example.
Mhm.
A healthy system should hire 3 out of 10 of every 10 administrators from outside the system, right? You want principals coming with fresh perspective, not necessarily.
Right.
Dr. Bedell very quickly found that in order to get principals to move to this county from pretty much anywhere, they'd take a $20,000 to $30,000 a year pay cut.
Yeah.
I will say it again, we are an underfunded system.
Yeah.
And
because of our tax cap,
people need to advocate. The county council knows how I feel about this. Now I will keep saying it, right? They know I'm not going anywhere. But unless and until they hear consistently from the voters throughout that it matters that we have a system that's sufficiently supported, these gaps are going to continue.
Persist.
And our students are going to suffer.
Yeah. And I think that's a conversation you hear. I have
Jess, can
relatives
I
that
finish
work
one
in
sentence? Can I finish one?
Montgomery County, and they say the same exact thing. They say, we're happy for Anne Arundel County to train everyone that we hire, because we will hire them for more. We lose people to Howard County. We lose people across the board. Jen, I know that Fish wanted to say something, and
great.
I think India's had her hand up.
India's had her hand up, and so go ahead, India.
Just an update looking at the proposed budget. There is no increase in social workers from last year and 3.5 more counselors from last year.
Yep. And again, there were some really tough choices that were made here. We do as board members bring amendments, obviously. And I will likely, because I know the situation, bring an amendment, I think, depending on what support I can get from my fellow board members, because you really need a couple of board members to get together to bring an amendment, to bring more services staff where we need them, because we need them. And in fact, it is written in statute that the superintendent and Board of Education members are here to advocate for the needs of our students, not for what we think we can get from the county, but for the needs. We are not given tax raising authority. That lies with our funders, but we are given the authority to be the determiners of what is needed in the system. And so, that's part of my job. And why I'm so popular with the county council and the county executive.
And well-deserved, I'm sure. Just to continue with that thread, Joanna, you were talking about advocacy. When thinking about what we do as members of the Education Commission and sort of how we mobilize folks in our neighborhoods and communities, what have you found in the last 6 years the most effective way to squeeze more blood out of the stone? Is it going to County Executive Pittman's meetings? Is it writing to our county council member? Is it going to the state during the budget process? Is it advocating for broad-based funding increases or specific positions? If we were to, direct our efforts, where would we direct them?
So, first and foremost, the Board of Education is the only entity that can put things into our budget, right? No one else can do that. So the first line is to ensure, for example, with the social workers or however else whatever other pieces we're looking at, that gets in, you advocate to get that into the budget, which is coming to the board. That being said, I wish I had a better answer than everyone, right? That the reality is that when the county executive and the county council feel in real terms that there really are members of the community out there who care enough to show up, and multiple people to show up. I mean, a lot of people on this call have done yeoman work for years, fighting and coming and testifying, and gotten some things through ultimately, but it needs to be a lot of people. It needs to be a lot of people. Last year, the police did a phenomenal job.
They did.
Getting people out. And I am in no way, they needed what they needed. But it was, the county, some county council members said to me, well, it was very clear people were really coming out for the police. We weren't seeing that many people coming out for schools, So it does come down to that at times. And I think, it really is, and you'll enjoy this, Fish. It's really an organizing effort. It's really an organizing effort.
Fish, I'm happy to clue you in after the meeting, because I've been like one of the few parents coming to the budget town halls. There'll be teachers there advocating for their own needs and their students, but very few parents and community members show up to advocate that. So that's really, really needed.
Sounds like it's been an evening. Let's do it.
Yes. Yep. So apologies, ladies and gentlemen. I've gone over. I have something else I have to get onto. You know where to find me.
Thank you.
I would be profoundly grateful. The couple of specific things people asked me, if you could just do a super quick follow-up email, so I don't miss anything. And as I said, you all know where to find me. Jess, I just realized I think I may owe you a text from like way back when. So I something is running around my head. So forgive me. It's been a strange December and early January. Many things going on.
Our next meeting is on January 28th. So hopefully you'll be able to be there for the whole thing, and we can.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking usually I can stay for the first hour. So that's my goal. But anyway, I'll get it on my calendar, and thank you all for what you do. And I will see you at budget hearings soon, no doubt.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanna.
Good night.
Night. All right. If anyone wants to follow up, we can put together an email. Obviously, you can always follow up individually with Joanna, but we can also put together an email with all of the information. I do have the links for the budget information that we had invited Ginger Henley and Jim Todd, who are the assistant superintendents for Network 3, which is what we are now a part of, elementary and secondary, for those of you who met them earlier in the year. But Ginger Henley is the Network 3 for elementary for the Annapolis and South River clusters, and Jim Todd is the Network 3 assistant superintendent for the secondary, which is the middle and upper schools. And I am trying to remember which schools fall under that. But anyway, so I will send out all the links so everyone has a chance to go through. It is really important to note, as India pointed out, and that's why I pulled up the budget, that there is no social worker, there are no social worker positions added at all in the cluster, or I mean in the county, not only in the cluster, but in the county, there are only 3.5 mental or school counselor positions. And I think that's really important to note now, in that I think a lot of us have sort of this concept in our head. I know, that I certainly had that for a while, that you have sort of college counselors and school counselors and, or career counselors and that type of thing. And at our schools, that's not. You have one counselor who manages all of the needs: mental health, college prep, career prep, and then every
General
day
scheduling.
school scheduling, all of those things. So at Annapolis High School, for example, you'll have one counselor who has all students from A to C. I'm guessing the letters off the top of my head, and they manage all of the needs of the students. So it's not like you have if you're A through C, you go to see somebody and they're going to help you with college or career prep, and somebody else is going to help you with mental health. That is it. There is one person for A to C. And that is obviously a huge load, really an untenable load on the counselors. And it really is something that we need to address, because we can't simultaneously say we want to make sure that our students have the best mental health options and availability and support, and then simultaneously not have that out there for them. So that's really important. Enid, you had a question?
Just wonder, I know Mrs. Tobin had to go, but I was very interested, and I'm really so happy to hear about the programs that the I don't know if it's intramurals or whatever they're going, how they're going to do it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, when she said that there was a cost, I didn't know if she was referring to the cost in the AACPS budget, or if she meant there was a cost to the parents and the kids. Did you
There's
know?
a cost in the AACPS budget. It was
Okay.
part of last year's
Okay.
budget. And they're starting off with soccer. This spring is going to be the first sport, from what I understand and what I've heard at the middle school level. But there is a cost in terms of, not a cost to the students, but a cost to the school system.
And do you know about transportation? That's always a problem.
We have not received the details. I can certainly reach out and see if we can have somebody come speak to us about the program. I think, as she said, particularly here in the Annapolis cluster, this middle school sports program I am super excited about, because the access to recreational sports is so difficult. And to be honest, we've had some families in both Annapolis and Bates who, for the past 3 to 4 years, have been trying very, 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 very hard to create an intramural sports program in conjunction with the programs that are already offered within the city and the county, so that somebody could play, say, volleyball as an Annapolis Middle School Panther, or as a Annapolis Middle School Dragon, or as a Bates Cougar, and compete on their team against the other school, but also against other teams in the cluster. And it's been next to impossible to jump through all the various bureaucratic hoops. It's been really difficult. So I'm really hoping that this is a step in the right direction to increasing accessibility. And because there are so many people, there's a great officer within the Annapolis Police Department who's really a huge fan, or a really big supporter, part of the community services. He's been putting together programs. He works with the Boys and Girls Club at Bates, the Bates Senior Center, not the Bates Middle School, and a number of other things. And he is able to find access to transportation and different things. So, hopefully this will all work together to sort of increase what's already been trying to get going, and has now to some success, but we could certainly see it expanded and better. So
Jess,
yeah,
I just want to point out, we already do have activity buses at least twice a week at the middle school. So there is already transportation home for kids who stay after they have a few different clubs and things there. So at least 2 days a week, that would be covered. I don't know how often the practices are or whatever. I don't think we have that schedule yet, but I'm hopeful, personally hopeful, that they will be able to coordinate use that same transportation piece that's already in place to provide.
Sarah, I don't know if you can speak to Bates, but I know at Annapolis Middle this year, the activity part of the after school clubs have been sports like teams, but like just intramural at Annapolis, not playing others, but sort of in anticipation, I think, of what's coming down the line. I don't know if Bates is doing that as well.
Not exactly. So one of our teachers, Mr. Mason, has started an after-school soccer club that we have now been in touch with a lot of different community resources to get him kitted up. He didn't have anything other than his own personal ball. And so oh, I can't remember the name of the organization. But they've donated to him so many balls and some cleats and some cones and some goals and all kinds of things.
No, not Play It Again sport.
No,
Play
it has-
Annapolis, maybe?
Play Annapolis. And so they are meeting after school, and I'm trying to think what the county told me that they're having a meeting. I feel like it's January 12th to set up the schedule for soccer. And then track is coming in the spring, and they're having discussions right now. You know, there's that beautiful track behind Bates, but it's owned by the city. So Dr. Bedell is in talks to see about using that for, I think he said six track meets. But and then some others throughout the rest of the county, but I'm not certain. I don't have any more information than that.
Yeah, that would be something, because that's, you know, something that we can advocate for and we can work to support. So if you learn more about that, or maybe you and I can meet in our PTA roles as well, and then bring that to the commission, because, you know, whatever we can do to support that.
Well-
Or if there's somebody on the commission who has a particular interest in this and would like to, you know, follow up on the middle school sports and take that on, just to keep us apprised of where we are, that would be great.
Yeah, I would love more information, because I've been told that if they do hold at least some of the meets at Bates, that we will be able to do concession and spirit wear sales as a fundraiser for our schools.
Annapolis Middle. And
Yeah.
then Annapolis Middle can have a
And Annapolis Middle can help us, yes.
Awesome. Okay. Odessa?
Yes, you said Mr. Todd's new position is what now? Jim Todd?
Mr. Todd is the assistant superintendent for Network 3 for the secondary school. So he's basically, if you remember Jolyn Davis.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about her.
Yeah, so he is, they've split it now into elementary and secondary. So so he is the assistant superintendent on the secondary level for Network 3, which is Annapolis, Broadneck, Crofton, and South River. And then Miss Henley and Janine Robinson are the and Southern they split Network 3 for the elementary. So Miss Henley has Annapolis and Broadneck, I think, and then Miss Robinson has Crofton and South River, if I understand it.
So where's Jolyn?
She went to Network 2, which is Arundel, Mead, Northeast, Severn Run, and Severna Park.
Oh, okay. That's all. I used to work with Mr. Todd. That's all. Okay, I just wanted to know. That's interesting.
All right, Janet?
I just had a quick question, wondering if any additional sports are planned or discussed, like for the fall. Are they going to be doing, and are they also having boys teams and girls teams equitably, or are they doing tennis or anything else?
I can't answer any of those questions. So that's what I'm saying. We need to invite someone to come in and speak to about it. And if there is somebody on the commission who is interested in taking this on as their, you know, interest piece, please feel free. Please feel free to let me know so that we can do that. Odessa, do you still have your hand up? Oh, Sarah, go ahead.
So I'm sorry. For soccer and for track, it's going to be you know, everybody, open to everybody. And I've heard rumors for volleyball and basketball in the fall, but I don't know for sure.
That would make sense because volleyball is the one that's already sort of going. And then of course, basketball is huge in Annapolis. So both of those would make sense. Okay. Let's see. So find the agenda again. Are there any other follow-ups on Dr. Tobin's update? Any other questions? I will send out a link again to the MSD website and the budget information to everybody. Yes, Janet?
Question on what time is the budget testimony meeting, public hearing tomorrow at the Board of Ed office, central office? And who on the commission is going to go to that and speak for commission cluster needs?
It's at 5 p.m.
5 p.m. Starts that early?
Or no, wait, hold on. Let's see. They may sign up at the hearing site beginning at 5 p.m. Oh, no, it starts at 6 p.m.
Starts
Sorry,
at 6
starts
p.m.
at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm. But you're in
Yep,
sequence.
and I will send all of that information out to everybody. Yeah, and if anyone is planning to attend, please let us know. And thank you for doing so.
Okay. So nobody's officially speaking for the commission yet?
Is anyone available or willing to do that? Janet, would you be interested in doing that?
They're tired of seeing me because they've seen me for the last 15 years. But
I unfortunately have things with my kids at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, so I am unable to make it. Okay, well, if anyone has the availability and is able to, that would be great. If not, Janet, if you are available, even if they're tired of seeing you, it's better to have nobody than, someone I'm sure they're not tired of. Plus, it's half a new board. So, there's all new people. There's been a whole administration change. There's been a whole change of lots of different things. So,
And we can all send in we can all send in comments. Even if you can't attend in person, you can still send in an email with your comments.
yes, exactly. Yep.
And the comments go to boardoffice@aacps.org.
And there is, again, in the link that I will be sending out, there is a link to the procedures and protocols for public comments, so that you can provide the written comments, how to do that. There's actually a form now. Although when you click on it, it said the form is no longer available, so we'll have to follow up on that too. But anyway, there's a form that they have supposed to have online for providing comments.
Okay.
Can
we send in a written comment from the commission requesting the social worker position for Annapolis High and any other mental health support contractual positions at a higher rate?
Yes, are you making a motion that we do that?
Sure, I'll make a motion. I make a motion that the Education Commission submits formal testimony to the Board of Education to support Annapolis High School additional social worker position and increased funding for mental health professionals.
Second the motion.
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Raise your hand.
Or say aye.
Or say,
all opposed? Oh, I'm saying aye, sorry. Anyone opposed?
Right.
All right, great. The motion passes. I will get the wording of that from the video and send an email.
Okay,
to them.
what was the vote number for the motion? We should have that for the meeting. Motion passes with vote.
I'm writing that down right now. And I know Corey's not here, so feel free if you want to be taking the minutes.
Yeah, I'm taking as many as I can. So, do we know what the vote was?
There are 9 commissioners and all voted in favor.
Okay, 9-0. Got it.
Okay. So up next, we wanted to just briefly discuss the inclement weather policies, both the AACPS policy and the city. What I really wanted to see if we could get had any feedback from anybody as to, for those of you who don't have kids in the school system, we are on day 3 today of no school. And due to a number of different reasons here in the city, the road and sidewalk clearing did not happen in any sort of expeditious manner. And that played, from what I understand, a large part into the decision that was made. But I know there were also, they were still shoveling out multiple of the local schools today. I drove around a little bit, and there, a number of the elementary schools still had sidewalks and particularly parking lots full of ice that had not been fully cleared. Particularly in our cluster, because we have such a high number of walkers. Both Bates and Annapolis Middle have a 1.5 mile walking radius, and a number of students who walk to school. For Annapolis Middle, most of those students, all of those students, if you walk to school, walk along Forest Drive. Unless, I guess, there are some walkers that come down Spa Road, which doesn't have any sidewalks at all. So they have to walk in the street regardless. But then on Forest Drive, none of the sidewalks were cleared. So a large stretch in front of Annapolis Middle is a CPS responsibility.
That's been cleared by, I just passed by there at 4:30.
Right, it's cleared now, but it was not
Parts
cleared
of
as
it,
of
right.
yesterday, right? And then there seemed to be a lot of back and forth as to whose responsibility other parts of Forest Drive were, both in terms of clearing the road itself, but then also clearing the sidewalks, and just so that everyone is aware, because there's been a lot of conversation about this online and elsewhere. In both the city and the county, it is the property owner's responsibility to clear the sidewalk and in front of their property, and all along their property. And in most cases, that has to be done by, I think it's 11 a.m. the morning after the snowfall, unless the snow stops after 6 p.m. There's a whole policy. However, that isn't really well understood. It seems there seems to be a lot of confusion as to whose responsibility, or maybe who owns the property, and it's an issue. Somebody just shared a picture of Annapolis Walk kids. Annapolis Walk, the sidewalks have not been cleared there. There are multiple issues, not only in the cluster as well, right? I saw multiple pictures in Cape St. Clair where kids who have to walk to school and aren't able to walk on the sidewalks. So it becomes an issue of equity if you don't have alternative transportation and you do have to walk to school. For example, in Annapolis, everybody from Madison Street onward, which includes all of the Tyler Heights neighborhood, all the way down to Forest Hills Drive, all have to walk to Annapolis Middle School. And anyone who drives through there can see there's a lot of areas that aren't treated. In addition, this is an area that historically has a lack of private transportation, much higher lack of private transportation than other parts of the city, and also the and the county. And we've talked about that a lot, not just because of inclement weather, but also in terms of transportation, right? If anywhere else in the city, you basically have to have at least some form of personal transportation, at least one, in order to live where you live. In the city of Annapolis, you do not. You can get by without personal transportation. And so anyway, how does that affect our students? And also, how does that affect the attendance and everything else? As of today, we have now used up all of our snow days. If we are home tomorrow, right now we are on a 2-hour delay, and we'll find out the status of school opening at 7:30 tomorrow morning. That will be a virtual day, and we have a certain number of virtual days that are allotted, and then then we go into extending the school year. So, obviously, while everybody loves a snow day, even my teenagers at 9 o'clock this morning, I came downstairs. I have my 2 teenagers plus another teenager that's hanging out with us for the snow days, and they were all in front of their computers doing schoolwork. So even the teenagers had reached their 3-day limit of school. Like, wait a second, we're getting too far away. So also it's the end of the semester. So, there's a lot going on. One of the kids asked today, will the semester be extended? I don't think that that's ever a policy that I've seen. But if kids had work that they were waiting to receive or, get graded, or they, how are these 3 snow days going to affect them? And therefore, what can we advocate for as a commission to encourage better clearing and better, so that we can have better. So anyway.
And I just also want to point out that because of the high school with not having Panther Hour, only having Panther 30, that all of our kids the students in our cluster in high school in our cluster have less time to make up work than students in other clusters that have a full hour.
Correct. Yep. Janet, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I had a couple discussions with different members of the city staff and of Dana Jones' staff, our state delegate, that there, we bring this up each year. This is not a new issue about the need to clear the sidewalks, and yet it is still not a coordinated response like it needs to be. So, I think Delegate Jones's office is going to try, they have an upcoming meeting between city, county, and state partners coming up, that they're going to try and bring this on the table. In talking with Eric Lashinsky, the chief of comprehensive planning, he did mention that city could, send one of their staffers out to actually look at the routes that our students are going to school and take down notes about which businesses are not clearing their sidewalks and need to be contacted. And he said that enforcement generally only runs on a citizen reporting basis, that the city is not actively going out to look for the issues. They only respond to something that's reported. And I told him I disagreed with that role of functioning. But just for example, so I stopped in, I contacted somebody who's associated with Heritage Church and told them they needed to get their sidewalk done. I stopped in the CVS. I stopped in one by Mills Parole. I stopped in a business and asked them by Annapolis Seafood, the auto place there, and asked them to clear their sidewalks. So if you know of some businesses, if you see something, India Annapolis Overlook has cleared a path by that property. So I was happy to see that. But if you see, but there's big stretches from Beechwood Hill through, does the cemetery owners have to clear the sidewalk in front of Annapolis Neck Road? This cannot be accomplished on a patchwork basis. And yet that is the situation it is being left in. And I think we need to advocate for systemic treatment. Each individual homeowner is failing to do this, and this cannot persist. And this is why we lost another day of school today with the overall response. So I would urge you to talk with the city leaders and the county leaders and the state leaders that this has to be a coordinated response and can't be left to patchwork intentions.
Who do we imagine goes and does the enforcement? Like, is it something where
So I spoke with Kate
Health
Pett,
Works?
Chief of Staff, and under the city of within the city of Annapolis, under the code, it is delegated to the DPW, Department of Public Works staff. So only they can do the enforcement of this action, which I think should be changed in the city code, because during a storm, DPW is out there 20 hours
plowing the roads.
They're the one plowing the roads, calling in, finding traffic hotspot accidents. So I think, Eric Lashinsky sent me the code for Anne Arundel County, which says, report this to the non-emergency line, report a violation of snow clearing to the non-emergency line of the county police, which I think the police in Annapolis would be more suited to be issuing citations in Annapolis, and that would relieve DPW work to be doing DPW work, you know?
It seems like DPW's got a lot to do. I don't know personally if I think it's a good idea for police to go knock on residents' doors and tell them we're going to cite you if you don't shovel your road. But for businesses,
Well, planning and zoning. So we used
Planning
to
and
have
zoning, somebody else besides
we used to
DPW.
have a Department of Neighborhood and Environmental Programs, and that department was who was responsible for not only during snow events, these types of things, but all the things, right? Like the dumpster's not getting emptied next door, or they, you know, there's no whatever, all the different things. Now that's been brought underneath and sort of like split between DPW and planning and zoning. But to me, it seems more like an administrative function of zoning, not, you know, planning and zoning has all these inspectors. Why aren't the inspectors the ones that are going out to, you know, if you get a citation for having an overgrown yard, that I'm pretty sure that comes from planning and zoning. And that seems to be like where it should be coming from there, but we should confirm that. But
thanks for entertaining my impertinent questions about context. I'm texting my alderman, so we'll see what we can get from being annoying.
Good. No, unfortunately, the city has adopted the squeaky wheel enforcement vehicle that only those who complain, and that's usually people in wealthier neighborhoods who have the time, who know who to call, get an enforcement visit for whatever issue. And that's not the way an equitable government should function. They have staff that they could deploy to go look through walking routes, and they have homeowners association contacts. They have all that they could be doing this job and not relying on, you know, one cranky neighbor in one little spot to be going out for enforcement. So I feel very strongly that this is a systemic failure that needs to be corrected.
Right. We're on a reactive, not a proactive, you know, and that is, I think, overwhelmingly, not just with this. And some of us were texting about this yesterday, that it is just a systemic issue with the city of Annapolis in particular, because that's where we are right now, where things that we should only really be having to contact and report things when it's an issue, right? When there's like a big, like things like having sidewalks clear or having your roads cleared for a snowstorm, that should be something that we should expect to have happen as part of what we pay for and as part of what we do, right? That's, I mean, whether, you know, that type of thing, like, hey, a pothole opened up on my street yesterday. I need to let somebody know because nobody's out doing that on a regular basis. But you know, we need to get away from the reactive governance and into the proactive governance, so that those of us who are active and advocate, regardless of where we live and regardless of anything else, can focus on the things that really need focusing on, and how we can advocate for resources for those things, and not on the things that should just be a matter of course in government.
Right. Can I also add that, you know, how Dr. Tobin was talking about the schools that have moved to 4-star and 5-star. Our school ratings are based on attendance and chronic absenteeism. And the Annapolis cluster's Achilles heel is chronic absenteeism. So if you make it harder and more kids unable to safely get to school, that parent holds them home, whatever, they don't have, then we are self-inflicting the wound of low school rankings upon our system. I mean, Annapolis High is still ranked as a 3 out of 10, and people throw that in our face all the time because of chronic absenteeism. So if we're not going to systemically support our schools by our city, then we will continue to wallow in these problems.
Yeah, and the end of January, my goal is to have a transportation discussion and get people from all the parts, because Fish, I know you haven't made it. I haven't been able to watch any of the previous meetings, but transportation, as Janet said, because of absent, it's a horse, cart, chicken, egg situation, right? We lack a sustainable public transportation system that works for our students. If you want to take a bus to Annapolis High School, if you missed your bus in the morning and you want to take a bus to Annapolis High School, or you want to stay for a sport after school, there are no activity buses. It's an hour and a half ride from Eastport or from Annapolis to Annapolis High School. If you live in the West Annapolis area, there's actually no public transportation that gets you to Annapolis High School at all, unless you walk somewhere. It's a $20 Uber ride in either direction at minimum. And it is not functional. So, we really need to come up with something that we can't say, well, it's too bad the Annapolis cluster schools have an absentee problem. Too bad transportation doesn't work for them. We really need to fix this absentee problem and put it on the backs of parents when we're not also doing what we can. We are a city. We are an urban city, right? We are a urban city. When I grew up in the greater DC area and I wanted to do after school activities, I could easily hop on public transportation to do what I needed to do, whether it was get to school early in the morning when my single mom couldn't get me there, or get home late after school when my single mom couldn't come pick me up after the activities. There's no reason within our city we can't figure out a way to be able to get our kids, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school, to and from schools appropriately. If you live in Eastport and you go to Annapolis Middle, it's 1.5 miles in each direction. It doesn't matter what the temperature is. It doesn't matter what the weather is. You have to walk there. There is no public transportation offered. And the school system has so far, as long as I've been a commissioner, been completely unwilling to decrease the walking radius and provide transportation. They say that transportation is not one of the issues of people getting to school. I don't know how that is, because when I talk to the families in my neighborhood, it is always an issue. But I've been told multiple times that that's not an issue. But it is, we have to figure out the transportation situation. Odessa?
Fully agreed with all that. I've got a question related to that. I know that there's the new Transigo system. I haven't used it yet, but I've heard of it, that just rolled out, where you can, from your phone, call an on-demand transit bus. And I was just looking at and it's free for K-12 students during the school hours. Is that now? I think we all, that's clearly not the silver bullet, because we all know there are issues with, buses running on time and people knowing about things and it feeling accessible to people. But is that something where we've heard people have tried to use it and it doesn't work, or there's like an awareness and adoption problem, or it doesn't service the right areas? Because theoretically, free on
you can only get the app if you have an iPhone right now.
Oh, shoot, it's not even available on.
Not available in the App Store on Android. We've been asking for about 9 months now. I mean, they announced it in.
We've been asking.
Yeah, they announced it in the summertime, and we have been asking continuously since then when it's going to be updated or available on Android. And it's not.
It is also only in a small portion of the city. It won't take you to the high school. It only follows. It took the place of 2 lines, and it's only available at certain times and in certain portions of the city. So I know that, one of our commissioners, their daughter, they live in Ward 6, and their child works downtown. And so we thought, oh, that'll be great. That'll be helpful to get to and from work. But it's never available and they work a retail job. So it's not like they're working, night shift at a hospital. But it's not available when they need rides. So it's a great idea. I was super excited. It's not even what is a bus, but it's like an Uber bus, but it's a city bus. It's very confusing. But anyway, I've taken it once. It was great. I would love, but you have to be within a very specific window.
You have to be within
and wanted to go to a very specific
place. A very specific place that does not include Annapolis High, and you have to have an iPhone.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you again for the context.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Odessa?
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about chronic absenteeism. Has there been any kind of conclusion or information on why we having this problem and what are the steps, to improve absenteeism?
So I think at the discussions that I've been in at each of the different schools that my kids are at, Eastport Elementary, Annapolis Middle, Annapolis High, they do speak to the specific reasons, but it really comes down, it depends, obviously, whether you're in elementary or secondary schools, first of all. And second, it's personal to each family. But again, as we've been talking about, the lack of accessible public transportation, or the lack of, alternative transportation, I guess, is the option to the public school. Transportation is a part of it. There are lots of different things. Sometimes it is a lack of access to clean clothing. It is a lack of access, or a lack of. We could invite somebody to come in and speak to it. I think that's probably the best way to go about it, because I can speak to what I've learned at the different schools, but I think I'd rather have somebody who's well versed in it come in.
But it is significant enough that I think almost every school in our cluster, every year they have their school improvement plan that every school puts out at the start of the year, like specific points that they want to improve upon. And I feel like as long as I was aware that there was a school improvement plan at each school, it has been on the list of almost every school in our cluster for years. And I know they have contracted out with, I think it's Attendance Works, to do like incentives, like if it's kids just being teenagers and not wanting to go, finding suitable incentives for them to come into school. And I know the schools have run various incentive type things. If so many students, if they get like a such and such percentage attendance, they get, extra recesses or things like that. But it's an ongoing issue and has been for as long as I can remember.
But we also had, like, at Annapolis High years ago, when I testified, we had about a 27% baseline chronic absenteeism. In 2022-23 year, we were up to 40.1% for Annapolis High chronic absenteeism, which is considered as 10% or 18 days out of the 180 days required to be in school. So if you miss more than 18 days during the entire school year, you are designated chronically absent, and to the detriment of the school's rankings. But
they used to fail students when they were out of school so many days. I know they can't.
Can you repeat that, Odessa? I didn't quite hear you.
Oh, okay. They used to fail them. If you missed a certain number of days, you couldn't graduate or pass to the next grade.
That is still the case.
But they're working with the students more to try and help them, overcome that and not fail.
Who was it who used to go door to door at the high school? There used to have, was that the PPW or the community ambassador? There was somebody that used to literally go to kids' homes and knock on the doors and say, "Why aren't you in school today? You got to get to school." I don't remember. I think that was one of those positions that have since been removed.
Do we still have community ambassadors at Annapolis High, Odessa?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
They may have some people there, but they aren't going to those communities. I had a PPW told me that their supervisors told them don't go into those certain neighborhoods. I should say, I'm not going to say all neighborhoods are bad, but they're telling people not to go to those neighborhoods or try to work on attendance. They do have PPWs, but I'm sorry, community ambassadors, but they all knew they're different.
From what I understand, the community ambassador program is not the same as it was when.
No, you're right. You're right.
Like when Miss Tippy was a community ambassador, or were you a community? You were a community.
No, I was a substitute teacher, but
okay. Gotcha.
But later on in the meeting, I guess for new business, I would like to know because my last child came out in 2005, I think. That's a long time ago. How many years is that? Is that somewhat? Almost years ago.
20 years. 20 years.
Right. And the population has changed so much. When I tell students, or my kids that Annapolis is not the school that they went to, they want to know, well, what happened? Because there's been a population shift. I think the population of African Americans are so low now that they can't even get some of these programs up and going because we don't have those numbers anymore. I mean, is there any kind of discussion about that? What's going on with the
What
African
programs are
American-
you referring to that they can't get up and going, Odessa?
Take for instance, like the city of Annapolis sometimes have these programs, after school programs, at the rec centers, where the rec centers are pretty much they're like ghost towns. I mean, nobody's going to them or they
At the
don't have a
I
staff.
can tell you that today they had a program at the rec center that was open and free from 12 until 4. And they had snacks and everything else and kids were, but I think Odessa, the programs are offered regardless of your cultural background, right? So they're offered, I mean, the population has changed, but they're open. I mean, the population of the city has changed, right? We've had a population shift in the city. And there are programs that are offered. I think it's more of a income level determination, not necessarily if that makes.
I'm unclear if Odessa's asking about the city parks and recs programs from Pitt Moyer and other places, Stanton Center, or if she's asking about the housing authorities, community center, recreation centers. Which one are you asking, Odessa?
Pretty much the housing authority because they can't get kids. They can't get kids to come out to their programs, after school programs and things. And I think, to me, part of the problem is that there aren't the numbers like it used to be when my sons were there. So, I would like to see some numbers or something of the population because I know for a fact.
If you go onto the MSD website, the same one where it talks about our ratings based on our based on the ratings of the different schools, they have all of that information. The demographics for every one of the schools in the county are on the MSD website. And in terms of the breakdown socioeconomically, cultural, everything, right? All of those breakdowns are on there. The number of special ed students, everything is on that website. So that's a good place to start, Odessa. And again, I'll include that in the email that we send out, the link to that website. And if you go on the school report card, I'll pull it up so that you can see what I'm talking about. Because I'll pull up Annapolis High School in particular so that you can.
Would you all agree that there has been a change in the population since 2005?
Sure.
Yeah, there's been a population change in the population city-wide. I mean, the whole
city and county-wide. Yep.
Right, city and county-wide.
Yeah, but they're still kids, and there's because they might not be showing up at the HACA rec centers, might have other factors going on.
I would say that I can tell you that from here in Eastport, the lack of programming is why people aren't showing up at the HACA at the Eastport Community Center at, along President Street. The reason is that people aren't showing up is because there isn't programming. So.
And I think the numbers have dropped a lot for African Americans in Annapolis and the Annapolis schools. But I will go to that website.
The programming at the rec center, the programming at the Eastport Rec, it has nothing to do with the school system, and has nothing to do with what's happening at the schools, right? It has to do with what HACA is offering. So that's
but
a different, and then what's happening at Pitt Moyer also has nothing to do with the schools. That is what the Annapolis Recs and Park Department is offering.
well, I'm wondering if that has any effect on the absenteeism, though. These programs are supposed to try to encourage the students to stay in school and want to go to school. Now, when I was going to school, years ago, I just had a birthday, so I'm not going to number myself. We love going to school. I just can't understand why these kids don't like going to school these days. We love school. So there's something going on, and there's a lot of things that I think that we're not discussing, because I have lived in Annapolis most of my life, and I see the changes, I see the differences. And I'm not talking about the Hispanic population or whatever like that, which is part of it, but I'm not saying that they're a problem. But there's a lot that's going on, and I would like to know if the African American students are still at the bottom, because we should be moving on up, and I don't know whether we are or not.
So I think you can see, if you can see the screen, Odessa, this is the attendance rate for all students. So for African American, this is at Annapolis High School. So an African American students at Annapolis High School, the attendance rate is 87.2. For the white students, it's 92.4. The 2+ ethnicity, it's 90.5. The Hispanic, it's 87.1. American Indian and I can't get anything to pull up on those. And then for the Asian students, it's 91.4. So you can see a lot of the data information available here on this website. I think it's worth it, to see that the African American and Hispanic rates are basically the same. So I think the big question is, how do we get everybody attending the school, regardless of what their race and ethnicity is, right? We want to get everybody attending the school. So when we look at Annapolis High School,
Jess, can you go to the chronic absenteeism?
Yeah. So when you look at chronic absenteeism, again, you have African American is 45.4, white 25.2, 2+ is 34.8, Hispanic is 46.7, Asian is 36.6. So again, what we want to do is figure out, how do we get all of these numbers down, right? We are at a high number across the board. If you change that to Severna Park, for example, and you look at the demographics and you look at the attendance and the chronic absenteeism, the numbers across the board, no matter the race and ethnicity, are remarkably lower. Right? So what is going on in Annapolis cluster to make our numbers so much higher? And I think that's what we really need to try to figure out. What is it that's going on? Where is the gap? What can we do to get kids at the school? And how can we as a community work with the school system? I know the school system has been working really hard on this. I know as a parent, we get a lot of emails and calls are, reminders, and there's a lot of incentives that are done to the students to get people there, to get kids there. At the elementary school, they do out of uniform things. They do, you get special, extra recess, or you get, Louis, what are some of the other incentives that you get for attendance? They have grade level, competitions, like 4th grade, gets this, and the same at the middle school, they do grade level competitions. But I think the conversation, if it's going to get fixed, needs to go to the greater community. It needs to go to people like all of us, right? To the Fish who doesn't have kids yet, to the Odessa whose kids are grown, right? To the Pam whose kids are grown, to all of us, and say, what is out there and what's causing this problem, and what can we do? That's my thoughts.
That's right. Yes, I mean, I'm just saying that I think the numbers, the Black population since I grew up over the years, and my kids coming out, has diminished or decreased. So it's just a lot of factors that I observe, but I'm not sure whether it's the truth. I would like to to get these numbers from over the years to see what's going on and why these kids are not coming to school.
I think we should definitely, have somebody come for hopefully maybe the February meeting. We can bring that up as a discussion.
But obviously
All
the number of students overall at Annapolis High has grown from, when it was 1,600 students to now 2,150 or close to 2,200 students. So even if the number of Black students stayed the same, but maybe there are a smaller proportion of the total number of students at Annapolis High. So I don't know that, I don't know what the situation is, but.
I know, I mean, for me, I can't say it's a fact, but my observation, and I'm living here and I'm going in these communities just about every day, I don't see the kids.
Okay.
I don't know
what's
what's
having less kids because it's dang expensive to have them, or
no, I don't think so. They're having babies. It's just that a lot of them, there's a lot of gentrification going on. A lot of people, I mean, most of the Black people I talk to, even when I go to funerals and things, they live in Glen Burnie. They live in Brooklyn. They're not living in Annapolis. Paroles is not Black anymore. I mean, it used to be. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just saying that the population change is quite noticeable, but I don't understand why these kids aren't going to school. So we need to kind of figure out what's going on in Annapolis.
So Odessa, I think we will invite somebody to come in for the February meeting to discuss this. And maybe we can pull together, some different census points as well. And, get that information to discuss it as a whole. I think the key point is, regardless of their race and ethnicity, what we want to do is reduce the chronic absenteeism in our schools. The larger discussion of why is the Annapolis population changed is sort of outside the confines of the Annapolis Education Commission. What we really need to do is figure out how we can help make the best experience for the kids that are in the schools and get the kids coming to schools and do what we need to do regardless of anything else, I think.
I agree. Thank you.
Yep. So we will definitely add that for our February. We'll make that as the primary point for the February agenda.
Okay, if you can, February, March, we got a whole year.
AACPS budget, I think, was next on the agenda. Oh, does anyone else have anything they want to bring up on that? Okay. Oh, well, so the inclement weather policies. I think it's all tied into all the things that we've been talking about and the priorities of us as a commission and making sure. One thing I would ask is that, unfortunately, in the reactive versus proactive point of thing, is that as commissioners, when we have inclement weather, please keep an eye out for the the issues like the sidewalks and the roads. Please share with your constituents and the people that you're representing the opportunities there are for reporting such things. If you go to our Annapolis Education Facebook page, I put together a post that has all the links from both the city and the county as to how to report when a sidewalk isn't cleared or when a road isn't cleared, who to email, both in the county and the school system and the city, and sort of what the next steps are. So, please make sure you share that with the people in your ward and in your greater community, in your schools. Let's get the conversation going so that we can get our kids, to school safely and responsibly as much as possible. So, our next agenda item is, like I said, the budget. Does anyone have anything else about the budget that they would like to bring up?
Not about the budget, but I had a question. I got an email, I should have all gotten the alert from the school system that they are kind of revisiting there was a policy change, and I cannot for the life of me find out what changes, just as that they're reviewing the policy, and I guess it's on the inclement weather closures. But I can't find out like what they've proposed, and I meant to ask Joanna before she left, and didn't. But they're accepting, just as they're accepting policy comments on the emergency plan. Public comment will be, the policy is accompanied by, and then they give the regulation. So I went out and looked up the regulation, which basically is the emergency plans for not just like weather closures, but any kind of like school emergency, whatnot. So I don't know if there is anything in relation to the snow day closures. We have used up all of our snow days, which means that at this point, if they wanted to have another day, it would either be added on to the end of the year, or it would be a virtual day. We do not have all of our students in our cluster have access to devices. So if they did a virtual day at this point, the students in our cluster would be disproportionately unable to participate in a virtual day because they haven't yet, we don't have they've collected all the devices. Now, the middle school or the high school students, right? Is it middle school and high or just high school? Are supposed to get one-to-one Chromebooks, but not until the end of January, according to the press release that we got earlier. But I don't know if that will be pushed back because of the inclement closure, the inclement weather this week or whatever. But at this stage right now, and then we've got this other storm coming at this weekend, there are no, the students in our cluster don't have devices unless they requested one. But by and large, we don't have 100% students able to participate in virtual learning. Oops, you're muted, Jess. You're muted.
I was saying that wasn't very helpful that I was muted. No, you're first of all, you probably didn't hear me say also that it is just high school. It's not middle school.
Okay, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
And then
they sent out another one, I guess it was last week, saying in advance of the storm, middle school could request one, but they had to request it by like Friday morning. So I guess they could take it home over the weekend. But then I didn't hear any follow up on that. Like, did it happen? Did kids get them?
Excuse me. I'm in a meeting. I cannot talk to you right now about this. Thank you. I'm sorry. There was something that came out, but it was unclear whether that was just for the inclement weather or for permanent. That's what I didn't understand.
I think it was just for the inclement credit, inclement just for this in this particular storm, but it didn't say when they were going to get them. It just said you had to have it in by 11 a.m. Friday, but it didn't say when you were getting the device or how long you could keep it, or is it just like literally your social studies teacher is pulling them off the cart and handing them out to you, and you got to bring it back, whenever school reopens.
Right. You can't do one-to-one if not everybody has online access. And that means not only having access with a computer, but also having internet access, right? Like, because a computer is a very convenient doorstop unless it has internet access. So
has there been any progress at the city level on getting internet access in our housing communities, like through HACA? I know there was talk about it that they were supposedly leaning on Xfinity to offer that.
We have not heard back from Will or Tola on either of those items. So I don't know the answer to that. So Fish, for your background, during COVID, there was a free internet access program or a reduced internet access program that was offered to residents of public housing, which is great. It still doesn't meet the need of everybody who is low income, right? Because not everybody that's low income lives in public housing. But that program was taken away, and the alternative that's offered is the Comcast program, which is a great program if you can access it. However, if you have ever had a delinquent bill with Comcast, you cannot access the low income internet access program. And that is a problem because a lot of the people who need the low income access have had delinquent bills. It's just a problem. So we had asked the city to see whether there was any sort of program that could be offered or if we could find something, because it's just an issue. The school system's response is our job is not internet access. that's where we are with this. So that's where we are. And you know, and as India and as Laura, as you had said as well, virtual days won't work unless everyone has access, online access, right? You can't have a virtual day. So we had a one-to-one computer program, so at least everybody had a computer up until this year, and then they took it away over the summer. So.
And I remember at the first meeting I attended when I was thinking about joining the commission, there was a whole discussion about it where students were supposed to be able to apply to get devices based on need, but that wasn't really happening. And is that still the case?
It was optional, so students could get them, like families could request them. However, there was parents were being asked to purchase insurance. So if you were low income, insurance was expensive. Yeah. So then we think, I don't believe that parents were taking advantage of it at the rate that the system. Yeah. And yeah. And Dr. Bedell did send out a press release. I think it was the beginning of December, basically, that said, okay, yeah, we said we were going to have devices in the classrooms, and it wasn't working out for a lot of reasons. Like if you have a cart with 30 Chromebooks and you have a class with 32 kids, that means 2 kids don't have access to devices. And it meant that a lot of kids did not have access to devices at home. So obviously, if a kid, if they're working on a paper or something, the kid that has a device at home would have a much greater advantage and more time to spend on their paper than the kid who's limited to just being able to use the Chromebook in class. So they did announce a new policy where high school was going to, at the end of January, all students in high school would be issued a Chromebook, and we would go back to one-to-one for high school. So that is,
which I have to say, I'm very grateful for the mea culpa. Not the mea culpa, but the, we've revisited, we've looked at where we were, we looked at what we thought was going to work, and it didn't work. And so, which I think is really important. I think that, I'm very grateful to have an administrative and leadership that is willing to pivot and make changes as needed for our students. I think that's really helpful.
Absolutely. And I have to say, even though we were frustrated with the decision, I personally feel like I have a lot of confidence in Dr. Bedell. I think that there have been a lot of great things that have happened in our school system since he became our superintendent. And I think this is one of those things where, he's going to keep trying until we get it right. The limitation will be for us it's just monetary, because the Chromebooks were paid for out of special funding COVID, and that money has since disappeared. So now we're in a system, we're in a period where we've got a budget shortfall. The states say, all the levels are saying less funding, there's less funds available, but that's a big increase in money that we've got to find somewhere. So that's the sticky wicket.
But also to make us equitable with other school systems, right? Because the majority, number of the school systems in our state, which is who we are generally competing with, in terms of money and funding and points and everything else, have one-to-one or have been offering, so we have to make sure that we're keeping our students so that, somebody who lives on the Howard and Anne Arundel County line isn't saying, but wait a second, the kids across the street are getting this, and this, and our kids are not getting this, and this, which goes back to the whole budget discussion.
Yep.
So.
Always lots of questions and no easy answers.
Right. Sarah, go ahead.
So I was just going to comment back about why people didn't get the loaner Chromebooks. Is originally, first they were saying, you have to have insurance. They were also requiring that if you got a loaner Chromebook, you had to bring it to school with you. And if you failed to do so, you would not have a Chromebook at school for that day. And they've now since said, at least at Bates, that they have enough Chromebooks in the school that kids who got a loaner wouldn't have to bring it back and forth. But I don't know that that's been adequately conveyed to people.
And I don't know that that's true at all schools. I know Bates got to one-to-one in all classes, but I know like at Annapolis High, they are not. So they do not have the same number of Chromebooks in that building as there are students attending. basically at the way it was done at A High was that teachers were asked if they needed them. And if a teacher said, yes, I need Chromebooks from my classroom, then they got them, but not all teachers apparently requested them. So there's still some issues there. I think, like, I know my daughter said, like, her social studies class, for example, doesn't have Chromebooks.
Or in some cases, they did it by department.
Yeah.
So they, right. So there was a.
Yeah. So sometimes, like, they'll have like a department and then they'll roll them into the different classes as needed, but it's not in every classroom all the time. So there's still limitations there. I wish all schools had done what Bates did, which is to say, we need one for everybody. But Ms. Hicks,
Well,
Mrs. Smith now.
Mrs. Smith, I will
Mrs.
say
Smith
that
is just magic that way.
the Chromebook that my daughter got is not the best. Some of the keys don't work, or it's not the best, but it exists.
Yeah, I know that the amount of damage that they said they had for all the Chromebooks that were handed out during COVID was like, when you add up the cost of, you know, Chromebooks for what, 86,000 students, and you know, it's just anything at that scale is going to be big, and the amount of damages and the Chromebooks that came back that needed repairs.
Yeah.
This is maybe a silly. Is there a way to donate Chromebooks? Because I got a Chromebook with my Wi-Fi plan, and I already have a laptop.
Oh.
So is there a, you know,
Interesting.
I should know this, but like,
You know,
sell
I
it on
don't
Facebook Marketplace, or I could give it to CPS, and I'd kind of rather.
I don't know that, but you know, you could certainly call any of the schools and say, hey, can I donate a Chromebook for student use?
Yeah, I'm curious because I like everyone's got old. No, I'm sorry, that's not a correct statement. A lot of people in Annapolis have old tech sitting around their house that they wouldn't mind parting with.
Right.
The problem with it, the problem.
Find that out.
I was going to say, I would say within the school system, I mean, within the city, I think it would be more advantageous to do it through the city, right? To do some sort of donate, like come up, the education commission could do it, right? And we can collect Chromebooks and then work with, you know, people like Donna Johnson and HACA and the Stanton Center and Boys and Girls Club and other charting careers and seeds for success and existing organizations that are already working with the students there to find the families that need some. There was a big giveaway that happened in the summer and in last year, but there was a lot of confusion as to, there was a false rumor going around that if you had the free internet, you couldn't get the free Chromebook from AACPL, the public libraries. And so a lot of people that were on the free internet didn't apply for the free computer from AACPL. And then those were all turned back, and they tried to give them out through community schools, the ones that were left over, but not all of our schools are community school, right? So that didn't go to Annapolis High School because Annapolis High School isn't a community school. It didn't go to Bates. Bates is not a community school, or Hillsmere, all of which have people who might need access to computers, because computer access also isn't only for the lowest of income, right? Everybody anyway.
And the other issue with old tech is that a lot of the stuff, like to make sure that stuff runs on all the platforms, for example, in like the algebra classes, they use something called Delta Math. So you would have to have somebody like you have to have a dedicated tech person to make sure that, hey, this device got donated and I got to make sure that it runs all of these different things that the kids are supposed to use. So then there becomes a manpower issue, like who's going to do that? You know, who's paying that person to make sure that this device works before they give it out to students. So I think what Jess said, going through a community is probably better than going through the school system, just because they have a tendency to, you know, they buy Chromebooks in like packs of thousands, and then they're all identical. So they all have the same identical software. They all have the same identical capabilities. And there's no question of, oh, this is an old laptop that maybe doesn't run that, but this Chromebook does, you know, so. Oops.
Yeah, I agree. So, you know, maybe it's, yeah, go ahead, Enid.
I just wanted to make sure you're conscious of time. It's like 5 of, and the Chromebook. Yeah, if we could move on, we're not going to be able to finish if we don't.
No. And I know we have a sponsored events and programs, but I'm going to have Janet. Are you around?
I think she stepped away.
Okay, so Laura, if you can quickly go through the slideshow, and then when she comes back,
Oh,
we can.
all right. Yes.
That would be great.
All right.
And when she finishes doing the sponsored events, you know, if there's any PTA events, Sarah, if you have anything that you want to let us know about.
So, all right. So we have a scheduling night coming up at Annapolis High School. Anybody that has questions about scheduling, or I guess this is for both incoming students, but also students who are there who have questions about scheduling requirements, graduation. They'll go through all the graduation requirements, which sometimes change, and make sure that kids get all the boxes checked.
Laura, do you know if this is good also for students who are anticipating being in a magnet program, or is it just for?
Well, the magnet, I mean, they will give you information about that, and they usually have, when they do these scheduling nights, they usually have different guidance counselors there. So there may be an opportunity to flag down one of the guys. They'll probably, usually at AHI, they divide them up, and they'll tell you, okay, these guidance counselors do this or whatever. But I will say the magnet programs always have their own scheduling nights. So there should be a special, if you have a kid who's going into ninth grade next year and has applied for a magnet program, once the magnet seats are usually, I think it's February usually when they announce who gets magnet seats. And then it's weird because it doesn't make any sense to me, but they do scheduling, at least in the past. They've done the scheduling as though you're not in a magnet program. Then they send out the magnet letters, and then they will do like a second round where once you're in your magnet program and you've accepted your seat, they have a magnet scheduling night where you go in and they will talk to you about the specifics of that program. Like my daughter's at Apex at high school or at A-High. So there were specific classes that she has to take in order for that program that the general school population does not have to take.
Yeah, so since people don't know about magnet acceptance or
everyone should plan to attend.
Everybody should go to this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really helpful. It's very helpful to everyone, whether you're in a magnet program or not, because they walk through just how the whole course program work. You can meet the counselors. It has a lot of more information. So yes,
and the graduation requirements are important to understand. Like how many years of math your kid needs is the same no matter, whatever the requirements are for that is the same regardless of whether your kid's in a magnet program or not. So some things like that you'll need to know. Like there are certain things, like for example, I think it was at biology, they have to pass the biology, they have to pass, I think, is it US government or US history? There are certain state standardized tests that at the end of the year, your kid will take a standardized test and they have to pass that test in order to graduate. So you could end up like, I know my daughter's a freshman and there's a senior in her US history class who is retaking US history because he did not pass the exam the first time around. And so he has to pass the exam in order to graduate. So they'll talk about those kinds of requirements as well, which again are the same across the board, whether you're in a magnet program or not.
Okay.
Any other questions about scheduling nights? Polar Bear Plunge is coming. All the schools have teams. So there are, kids, I think probably all four of Jessa's. I know my daughter's participating for the first time this year. But kids are pledging money so that they will go and they will do the Polar Bear Plunge at the end of the month to raise money for the Special Olympics. So I wanted to give a shout out to that because there are all kinds of kids out there. If you don't have a kid who's participating, I'm sure you have a neighbor or some poor kid who's desperately trying to raise their $50 so they can go and participate. Threw that in there. And then these were some of the things that I grabbed out of both of the Bates Kruger Chronicle and the Dragon Digest. There's a elementary middle school artwork contest, which is the theme this year is Every Voice Matters. And this is through the ARC and the county, what is the word I'm looking for? Anyway, the department that deals with disabilities.
The Maryland Development of Disabilities Council.
Thank you. Where it says right at the bottom, sorry. That there's mobile food pantries coming up at Mills Parole. So Thursday, the 16th, next Thursday, the 16th, February 19th, and March 20th. So if you know any families that are in need, that they can go and access the food pantry there. In addition, I think the high school was supposed to have theirs this week, and they've rescheduled it to next week at A High because
And there's one at Annapolis Middle on Friday as part of the Dragon Night.
Oh, I think that's next coming Dragon Night. There you go. So yes, the food pantry will be here, and I believe is this also the one with the coats, winter coats, Jess?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So there will be the food pantry available, and also access to winter coats for kids for students that need winter gear. Operation Warm. So yeah, so this is more on that one.
Yes.
And then the Title I, the ACPS District Title I office has an academic series, and so they're talking about strategies to help parents help their students with math, and that'll be available online. And we could send this link out there's a clickable link. Obviously, you can't click on it, but we can send this information, these flyers out. County is having medical assistance eligibility. So like if there are programs to help, if you need medical assistance, to help to fill out your applications online. And these are, okay, this was not an event. This is just a walk-in. So Truman Parkway, Health Center, you can walk in and they will help you to fill out those. They have the county has a worm line for assistance with any kind of needs, housing, food security, things like that. So they wanted to make sure that we posted this information, shared this information out. That was it. All right.
All right. Janet, on to you. Just real
Sure.
quickly, because we're at 8:03, please.
Yep. I just wanted to reiterate, if people can get their calendars out, I want to reiterate some dates and some, what I hope to be maybe some encouragements, expectations for our commissioners. We've all chosen to seek this appointed role, and we need each and every person on the commission to be a representative to our elected officials and decision makers. So we do very much need your presence at the county executives town hall meetings. Even if you can't make the one at Annapolis High, maybe it's even more effective to go to one of the other districts' town hall meetings, because as Dr. Tobin mentioned, there was a very effective communication presence from the police officers last year, and so few parents turned up for advocating for our schools. So the one at Annapolis High is February 4th, if you want to write that down, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Annapolis High auditorium. There is also the February 5th virtual event for Spanish language town hall. So please disseminate within our communities that they can make their priorities known to our county executive and county council through this virtual event for Spanish language speakers, February 5th, 6 to 8 p.m. There's one January 16th at Severna Park High School, January 14th at Chesapeake High School, January 23rd, Southern High School, January 30th, Arundel High School. Try and make one of these to please speak up for our school system and the needs, because you would be amazed at how much it's counted or discounted when school populations don't show up to advocate for the budget. And I just wanted to please remind people that when Mark Hildebrand sends out the invitation from the city for the Zoom link, there is, all the way at the bottom of the message, there is an RSVP where you indicate whether you are coming, you are a maybe, or you are a no. And that helps us plan to know if we have a quorum for passing motions, if someone we wanted to speak on an issue is not going to be there. So please designate your attendance, your intended attendance for the meeting, and tell the chair in advance if you are not going to be able to make the meeting. We're going to try and get materials out to you earlier to have your participation, because we can't be a passive commission and get anything done. We need each and every one of your talents to get the coordination that our students need. So please feel free to write the chair at Annapolis Education Commission @gmail.com and let them know what your strengths are and where you can put your efforts in. All right, thank you.
So, Jan, any of those meetings, budget meetings on Zoom or anything like that, or you just have to be in person?
The ones in the high schools are in person. The Spanish language one is on Zoom.
Jan, I just put the meeting in my calendar. I was already hoping to go to make sure that we have funding for violence interrupters continue.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And I can do, are we, is anyone?
You get 2 minutes. You get 2 minutes to speak.
Good, I can talk about a lot in 2 minutes.
If you can hone it down for your 2 minutes.
Are we gonna, someone gonna prepare kind of talking points so that we on the commission are sort of singing from the same songbook in terms of advocating? I mean, obviously we're not, we can all have our own opinions, but like have, sort of similar things that we're advocating for, so that, like I have something to look at and I can make sure that I'm hitting on points that are agreed on by all of us.
Well, we don't, I mean, other than the motion that we passed tonight, that is something that we agreed on all together, which is for more mental health support at Annapolis High School. We don't have anything agreed on. I mean, I can certainly put something together based on what we've discussed in the past.
We've agreed in the past on coordinated transportation issues between city and county to get the students back and forth easier. So that might be something we could also mention, but more just, support for funding for the mental health counselors and the social worker to be part of the violence interruption program and restorative justice. And I think those are some big issues in our cluster.
Cool.
But that email, the email that we have does include all of us. So, you certainly can, respond, we can discuss that. That is what I'd hoped to, so I'm glad we have one motion going forward. But if there's anything else that we want to discuss about the budget, in terms of priorities, we should. Okay, any other questions about that? Thank you.
There is also a link on that, on the, Jan has a link for the budget meetings, but there was also a link there where you can submit comments online. So if you can't make it in person, I urge everyone to just at least take a minute just to submit comments online.
Yeah, I will send all that out to everybody. As well as the presentation that Dr. Bedell delivered on December 18th. There's a video presentation. You can watch that. But I definitely think transportation, I think one of the things that we've talked about in the past is, given our transportation issues here and the fact that there aren't activity buses at the high school, it really limits participation, not only the lack of public transportation, and that is, as always, one of the issues. The school system says, sorry, not our problem. The city says, sorry, not our problem. The county says, not our problem. And then what's left are these students who have a big problem. And, they're sort of left in there. And so,
and it's not just students. It also means the parents can't get to school for the students' parents can't get to school for conferences and things like that. And people who work at the school, we have constant issues. We don't have enough lunchroom personnel. So getting through the lunch line in the 20-25 minutes that the kids are allowed is really hard if you are short-staffed in the lunch department. So there are things like that people can't get to those jobs if they don't have transportation, and we don't have transportation.
It's workforce development, it's education, it's participation, it's interaction, it's all of the community building, it's all of the different things that are affected. So, maybe add, transportation, activity buses or, something like that. The community ambassador program, that was a huge one. We actually advocated a number of years ago for the city to provide to budget for one of the community ambassadors. And then that sort of disappeared. But that's the other thing that I think we all need to look at is not only what are we asking AACPS, but what are we asking the city, right? I think that's really important because we're looking at this budget and the budget is going to have its confines, right? So if what we want is this, this, and this, what can the city provide? These are city residents for the large part, right? These are city residents. These are our kids in our neighborhoods. These are going to be our young adults, and these are going to be our adults and our future, future voters and future workers and everything. And, the city has a responsibility to them, even if they don't run the education department that the kids attend the schools at. They do have a responsibility because they're the residents. So what are we doing? Exactly what Odessa said. What are we doing about, rec program access? I had a long conversation with someone the other day about why is the rec center in Eastport, if HACA isn't able to fund it and manage it with staffing and programming, why not have that be something that the city takes over and runs additional programming to what's done at Pitt Moyer, just like they did with the swimming pool last summer, and then open that up not just to the housing authority residents, but to all of the kids. This section of Eastport has a large low income population. Eastport Elementary is 90% low income, right? 90% free and reduced meals. And, those kids could all use access to programming. And, why not have something that's open to everybody, not, and right now it's not open to anyone. So, what can the city do to provide more access to something within the community? So
I know the city budget process is starting now and there will be workshops. And that's probably a place where advocacy on transportation can have
without a doubt
have
right.
the highest yield. Okay.
Yep. And there's a meeting coming up, a transportation development plan meeting that's coming up in January that I plan to attend. Because transportation is going to be the hill that I die on in Annapolis. I think it's going to be.
I'll die on the snowbanks. You die on that transportation hill.
Damn it, mine's year round. Anyway, and Fish, anytime, since you're just coming into this, anytime any one of us, right? Pam, everybody has been involved in this and for a very long time. Laura and I are relative newbies to the whole thing, which is funny because it's been like 2 of my children have been born since I've been involved in this commission.
Since my oldest is 21, I know I've been doing PTA in Annapolis for at least 17 years.
Right, exactly. But, we can always, grab a coffee and discuss, and meet and, talk about different things.
Absolutely.
And,
just fire off questions.
If we want to have,
got a question, send out an email.
Right. And there's no reason we can't, set up a community discussion meeting as well with the commissioners, right? There, aside from our monthly meetings, there's no reason that we can't, try to work. Our job is to find and advocate for resources for our students and whatever we need to do. My goal as chair is to make this a proactive, not reactive, and a positive force for and more positive, during COVID, it got really hard because there's only so much we could do, but, get back to really creating change and beneficial change for our students. We really need to do that. And we all work so hard and, we have so many resources and so much information in all of us, that are here at part of the commission and, trying to activate as much as we can within knowing that everybody is, stressed to the wazoo and everybody that's on here is an advocate for 17 other things as well and volunteers with multiple other things as well. So anyway, I know we are 15 minutes over time, so if anyone has anything else for the good of the order.
Just
otherwise
our next meeting is
next meeting is January 28th at 6 p.m. And
Just who are we lining up? Who are we lining up for our speakers?
Sorry, I said January 28th. It's January 29th.
29th.
Today's the 8th. January 29th at 6 p.m. And my goal is for the transportation.
Okay, you have to go through Mr. Dickerson if it's an AACPS person.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion.
I
I'll
move
adjourn.
that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Anyone opposed? All
Good.
right, enjoy hopefully the last snow day night. Since we don't go back to school tomorrow, I'm gonna cry a lot.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Thank you all
all.
for being here.
night.
Thank you.